Good morning, my colleagues and the people of Guam. The Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing convenes this budget hearing. First public notice was given on May 15th, second on May 19th. Today is May 22nd for the record, and the time now is 10:30. The committee will hear and accept testimonies on Bill 282-35 LS, the Fiscal Year 2021 Appropriation Act, as requested by the governor, relative to the office of the Attorney General for fiscal year 2021. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me. I have Senator Therese Terlai. I have Senator Pito Terlai. I have Senator Kelly Marsh Taitanu. I have Minority Leader Senator Tello Taidagui, Senator Mary Torres, Senator Luis Muñoz, and Senator Jim Moylan. Those testifying on behalf of the department will be recognized by myself and invited to the panel. And we have invited Mr. Levin Camacho and Mr. Fred Nishihara from the Attorney General's office. Written testimony may be read. Your lengthy written testimony should be summarized, but this is your hearing to hear your budget, okay, Mr. Attorney General? Please provide our legislative staff with your written testimony so we can provide photocopy. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. We're talking about your budget for 2021 only, all right? You'll be allowed to present your own testimony, and once you're done, you are being asked at this point to please remain in the room until the committee has asked you all the questions they may desire. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for this proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and or may be asked to leave or be escorted from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. You will state your name for the record. At this time, I ask the panel members to please rise and for our Sergeant of Arms to please swear them in. Thank you, Sergeant Arms. We will now begin to discuss the budget for the Office of the Attorney General for 2021. And I would ask the Oversight Chair, Senator Therese Terlai, to please begin with, if anything you wanted to ask them. We will start with you. Not? Okay. Then we'll ask Mr. Camacho, the Attorney General, and his staff, Fred. You can begin whenever you're ready to present your budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to you and to members of the committee. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. We did provide a cover letter to our budget submission, and I won't go over that, but we have benefited as an office greatly for some of the tools that the legislature included in this year's budget law, specifically the ability to hire unclassified employees, unclassified retired attorneys, senior law clerks, and the ability to detail for longer than 6 months for members on military leave. Before we get into the numbers, I do want to just be upfront that we started preparing this budget in January and February before we were into the COVID-19 pandemic. And I want to recognize that the body has some tough decisions ahead of it. But we have submitted a budget based on what we could optimally operate at. And I'm here today to talk about some of what our requests, specific requests are. To give you an idea of what our office has done over the last year with the budget that was provided, and focusing specifically on accountability, efficiency, and community engagement, and I guess starting with appropriately accountability. I know that the public auditor was in here just before us, and this past year we have formed a partnership with the OPA to look more heavily into the potential misuse of government funds, and that is something new. We have also, after I was sworn in, we have provided training on both FOIA and open government, because as much as we need to hold members of government accountable, we also need to tell them what the rules are so that they can follow the rules ahead of time. That would be the ideal situation. As an office, we have traditionally defended the government of Guam in litigation, but over the past year, we have taken a much more affirmative stance in representing the interests of the people of Guam and the government of Guam. For example, we have joined in litigation involving opioids, generic drugs. We have, as you are aware, filed a case involving the use of AFFF or PFAS. And last but not least, we have also continued to assist the government of Guam in collections. And I believe that the administrator of GMH was here and testified that there has been a significant improvement in GMH's collections as a direct result of our office's involvement in collection efforts. We have settled over $500,000 in claims on behalf of the government of Guam and filed millions of dollars worth of claims for delinquent taxes and other debts owed to the government of Guam. Efficiency is very important to our office, and we have now and are moving to centralize and standardize all of our operating procedures. It's going to be a large task. I don't think people realize that we have an office of nearly 200 people, including 50 attorneys. So going through and putting everything to paper is a task that we are taking on as quickly as we can with the resources that we can. I know that the UDC, the undistributed child support account, is something that many of you have asked about, and in particular Senator Tadegui, and we have a response coming to you. But over the last year, our office has reissued hundreds of checks totaling about $200,000, and some of them going back to early 2000. So we have dedicated some staff, and we're continuing to move in that direction to get that UDC down. Technology is really, we're relying heavily on our IT staff, and I'm sure, as you know, tech is becoming more and more important in this pandemic. Over the last year, we have stood up our G Suites. We have signed up for G Suites, and we now have the capability of doing keyword searches within our briefs, as well as prior AG opinions, which is a capability our office has not had, and we're looking forward to rolling that out to the community within the next few months, so that you will be able to go online to our website and search for all prior AG opinions based on keywords. And that really leads into our last point that I want to emphasize is community engagement. Attorney General Barrett Anderson started with the VINE program, which was to give automatic notification for victims of crime, and we were able to launch that program last year, partially under the direction of Deputy Attorney General Fred Nishihira, who now oversees the victim services. That's been a great program, and we're looking to expand to include DOC notification, and we're continuing to talk to the court and to see if they would be willing to join in that project as well. We have updated our website. We are now present on social media because a lot of the public is familiar with our public safety function, but don't know things like our solicitor division reviewed nearly 500 contracts in fiscal year 2018, or that our consumer protection division received and responded to nearly 200 consumer complaints during this COVID-19 pandemic. We are in P-Corps 2, and we know that we still have to provide services to the people of Guam. So we have actually set up, using our G Suites, remote conference rooms so that we are able to meet with members of the community when they come in. They're able to go into a room and to have face-to-face interaction with our staff. And we're looking again to build on that to provide similar services to victims and if our investigators are performing interviews. Now, with all that our office and our team has been able to accomplish so far this fiscal year, staffing has been our biggest challenge. As I mentioned earlier, we do have 50 attorneys, and we would be the largest law firm on the island and potentially in the region west of Hawaii. But we lost several senior attorneys within the last year to retirement, and we've also lost some attorneys due to the rules that prohibit you from practicing on Guam with a mission in another jurisdiction for up to 5 years and only 5 years. We have taken steps, though, to address that problem, and we are now formalizing our recruiting specific to attorney recruitment and retention. We have been able to sign up for an online recruiting service, and within the last 2 weeks, we have received over 50 interested parties, notification for 50 interested parties. It's been hard to complete the application process because many of the governments across the United States are closed, but we believe that this is an interest in working in our office that we have not seen before, and we're going to continue to capitalize on that. Which leads into our current budget requests. We have asked this body for a $17.6 million budget, which represents an 18% increase from this year's budget. And as I noted at the beginning of these remarks, this was prepared prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we are open to, we will work with this body to figure out what we can do. But I did want to address that the bulk of the increase in our request is staffing. We're looking to hire at least 10 more attorneys for our office, get our prosecutors, build them back up, add more to litigation so we're able to handle more of these cases in-house, and have some additional support staff. We've also allotted about $250,000, and that would be for outside counsel and for travel related to experts, criminal trials, et cetera. But I think one thing we had not prepared for is the need for technology moving forward. We don't know when a vaccine or if a vaccine will be available. We don't know how long we're going to have to maintain these social distancing measures. The court is already trying to figure out how it's going to impanel grand juries, conduct jury trials, and everything else is realistically going to continue to be done via tech. So with all the equipment and the supplies that we've requested, we anticipate a lot of that's going to have to be reprioritized to meet the realities of the days that we're living in where we cannot be within 6 feet and only 2 of us can come into a hearing to present to the legislature. So with that, I'm open to any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho, Attorney General. Based on the analysis from the Office of Finance and Budgeting and my office, simple question and the impact. Will you be receiving any COVID-19 federal assistance in this year that may impact 2021, sir?
As of this time, outside of the differential pay for our staff who have been reporting, we don't have anything specific. I know that there are some grants that have been out there and our grants team is aware, but there's nothing that's concrete, I can tell you, Mr. Chair, that we are anticipating to receive for fiscal year 21.
All right. Compared to FY 2020 authorized level, your FY 2021 budget request did not include funding for the Solicitor and General Counsel Division. How do you intend to continue operation in these divisions? Are you merging in the Attorney General's office? If you can explain that, please.
Yeah, so the prior practice, Mr. Chair, was to put all of our supplies and equipment by division, but all of our procurement is actually handled through our administration division. So we have consolidated the requests for supplies and equipment for most of the divisions into admin. So that's why you would see a zero in those divisions.
Your request includes $3.44 million as local match for child support case management. And I think if I'm correct, you asked for 2019 lapse, so that, and how much will be needed for, is it still 3.4 you're going to need for 2021?
Mr. Chair, on that, we had, as we've represented, we are intending to use our lapse funds from fiscal year 19 to take care of the first phase of the migration of our APOSI system from the legacy language into a more up-to-date language, and that would reduce our maintenance costs and allow us to adapt and to change our child support system. But we have included the $3.4 million in this year's request, and we haven't reflected the $1.2 million that we intend on using for phase 1. I can tell the committee that we are finalizing the RFP and expect on putting that out very soon. And our deputy for child support is available if you have specific questions on that. But the intention would be to use those funds from fiscal year 19 to pay for phase 1, and that would reduce the amount from 3.4 down. So we just don't know the exact amount at this point.
All right. Now, the request for the 3.4 is to actually cover the local funding requirement, right? And what is the federal support that you're getting, federal money that you'll be getting on the grant?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it would be a 33% local, and then, so it's a $10 million project. Of that, the government of Guam would be required to put 3.4 up, and then the federal government would pay for the rest.
All right, thank you. And I have support. I'm supporting that. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that's clearly stated.
Oh, and Mr. Chair, on that, I wanted to just highlight. Every year we pay over $1 million in maintenance for our APOSI system because it is so old.
Yes.
And I believe you're familiar with Department of Labor had an issue recently in getting their system modified because of the language that their system was written on. So this is something that is not unique to our office. I believe Deputy Attorney General Perez has indicated in other jurisdictions where they've moved just the language, we would potentially see a reduction of down to $600,000. And so our current budget request includes over $1 million for maintenance. That number would continue to come down as we're able to move that system off of APOSI.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Your proposal includes a request to utilize funding from the Notary Fund the Consumer Protection Fund, the Victim Witness Housing Travel Fund, and the Office of the Attorney General Operation Fund. How much do you estimate is available in these funds that you intend to, you're trying to merge it, it's quite obvious. So it's kind of like help yourself, self-help program within the Attorney General's office.
Mr. Chair, I believe this language is actually included in this year's budget. So for the last few years, you have allowed our office to use funds from our notary fund, victim travel fund for general operations. In terms of the exact balances, I can get, our finance person is waiting outside, but that's language that has been in the budget for.
All right, if you can just give us that information
Yes.
after this hearing so that we can have an understanding of how you intend to work within the confines of the Attorney General's office. I just want to make sure that we have that clear understanding. Senator Therese, the Oversight Chair of the Office of Attorney General. Ma'am.
Thank you, General Camacho and Attorney Nishihira. Thank you for being here and for the presentation on the budget. So we'll just start with that child support system again. So I know that, yeah, you've been working on this for many years now. We want to bring in the new system, reduce maintenance costs going forward. And the new system, you need a total of 3.4 million, 1.2 we hopefully will have from the FY19 lapses. That's phase 1. And so would it be correct to say if we could put 1.2 for phase 2, that you would need that in FY21? Or would that be maybe FY22?
I believe when we got the rollover language that we were able to use last year's lapse and this year, we had hoped to get 3.4 million, and that would have been able to, in one shot, we could have migrated the entire system.
Oh.
But based on the funds available, our child support division and again, Deputy Attorney General Perez went and he tried to figure out the best way to parcel it out into a phased approach. So we recognize, I guess if we were to get another 1.2 million in lapse this year or to use, then he would have to figure out what we could do to have a phase 2 almost.
Okay.
So the initial plan was to do everything in one shot, but we are working within the budget that we're given to figure out what we can do.
So what do you have still available from FY19 lapses?
1.2 million
Okay.
is the amount.
And what about from FY20, what do you anticipate?
It's a little bit of a moving target, Senator. So I believe as of last week, we had 1.6 million.
Okay.
But we have not been able to have, we've been on lockdown for the last 3 months, so a lot of the hiring that we had intended to move on, all of our procurement, we have not been able to move on a lot of it, so it's unclear at this point how much we would lapse.
All right, okay, and I appreciate that, and I hope we can get that system for you this time around, we'll see. And did I hear you correctly? It's hard to hear with these masks on, but some of us sometimes muffled, but did you say you are not going to receive any part of that allocation from the CARES budget? They had to put are you going to be receiving an allocation?
We haven't had any specific, I guess, talks with anything concrete at this point in terms of any funding that our office would receive from the CARES Act.
All right,
I know I've seen the governor in her plan had some funds for both judiciary and our office, but in terms of other, we haven't formalized anything at this point, Senator.
All right, I guess the OPA was also here, and he said the same thing. So they've lumped together the 3.9 million for judiciary, OPA, and your office. So without any further, we don't know any more details on that. Okay.
No, Senator.
You guys have received money from the Burns grant to get PPEs and things like that? Is that correct? That's what, I don't know, we had another hearing and they were talking about that grant for law enforcement, that they had been able to provide supplies or protective gear.
So I can say that Department of Public Health reached out and has, I believe, probation is helping them with some of their quarantine and isolation.
Oh.
We are also, our investigators have volunteered actually to assist in those efforts.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be some PPEs acquired through that direct work. And so to the extent, I don't know of any specific money that's been given to us, but PPE may have been provided for our employees who are doing COVID-19 related work.
I saw on maybe social media that your office, you have, made some changes so that people can interact safely and actually get some transactions done, or speak directly to who they need to speak to.
Yes.
Safely. Yeah, thank you for all that. Okay. So the change in your budget this year is approximately 2.6 million increase. I see 1.8 of it is for personnel services. Am I reading it correctly that it's an additional hiring of 9 positions?
I believe it was 10 attorneys and then support staff, Senator, but I can verify that.
Sorry, repeat that one more time. Sorry.
I believe it was the proposed staffing for 2021 would have us hiring 10 additional attorneys and then some additional support staff.
Oh, okay. With the 1.8, you can get 10 additional attorneys? Great.
And then some support staff, yes.
And some support staff, all right.
An example of that, Senator, would be with our partnership with the OPA, we're hoping to, at some point, stand up a white-collar division, and we've requested an additional investigator so that we can have someone dedicated to that type of work. Right now, with our investigators, they handle all of our criminal cases, so we're just hoping to build out, and that's an example of one additional body based on the partnerships that we're forming.
Okay. There's a $547,000 increase for contractual services. Could you just explain that?
Yes, so we have, I believe, lumped in for outside counsel for Supreme Court appeals, Ninth Circuit appeals. Anytime we need conflict counsel, that would also be contractual. So I believe at least $250,000 would be devoted just to litigation and experts and witnesses. And then some of that would be, I know as an example, we have $25,000, we requested $25,000 for transcription, for court transcripts. So a lot of it is just tied into litigation.
All right, and so is that in addition to the provision that says you can use, set aside 5% of your appropriation for consultants, experts, or expert witnesses, sole source for criminal cases and federal litigation? I'm reading.
Yes.
Okay, so that would, all right. Have you used this much this year in FY20?
I know that we have, there has been the retention of a special prosecutor. So I believe that there was either 25 or 50,000 that had to be set aside for that purpose. We are awaiting on some decisions on whether there be conflict cases for our office. So we would need to go out and to procure that. So I guess, Senator, it's more of a planning in the event that our office, or we need to get outside counsel.
Okay.
We would have the ability to do that without having to request supplemental funds.
All right, and then there's a capital outlay increase. It's $23,000, but could you just explain, do you know the detail on that?
Senator, in part, our family division, Carol is wanting to set up the Juvenile Justice Center, and to do that, it's going to take a room full with the, I know it says conference tables, but really what they are like training tables that flip, and you can move it around so you can have more participation when you don't need the tables. And so that is in the plan for next fiscal year. So that accounts for most of that, I think, amount of money you're looking at.
All right. Okay, because there's a $60,000 for equipment and then a $23,000 for capital outlay. And it does say that you're, well, all right then. Okay, maybe just, if you could point out the detail to me about that later, that'd be great. All right, and then I know the chair had asked a little bit about this, but could you just explain, so have you made changes in the staffing pattern in, let's say, in the upper levels of the Attorney General's office, and if you could just explain those? I thought he asked about the General Counsel. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you could just explain those positions, what's different, with you than the prior Attorney General, and how that works?
Sure. So we have the prior Attorney General had no chief deputy, but had a chief of staff. So we have now brought back the chief deputy, which is Shannon Taitano. And so we do now have a chief deputy position, but we do not have an unclassified chief of staff position at the office. We have created a new division. This is last year, general counsel, and general counsel serves as our internal. They are charged with centralizing all of our internal SOPs. They also serve as our legislative liaison. They handle all of our FOIA requests that are made to our office. And more recently, they have been responsible. IT has moved under general counsel, so they have been the ones that have stood up and really been the backbone for our office during COVID-19.
Does your office handle FOIAs for line agencies?
We assist in that, and that is still handled through solicitor division. So general counsel.
Solicitor.
Yes.
Okay.
General
All right.
counsel handles FOIAs just made to our office.
All right. And in the solicitors division, are there changes?
No.
All right. Do you plan in going forward or in FY21 any changes in the prosecution division?
We're hoping to add more prosecutors. Senator.
Is that one of the divisions where these 10 attorneys that you're hiring might fill in?
Yeah, that's correct. I believe 4 or 5 of the positions that we're looking to fill are within prosecution.
Great.
We're at 16 and we're hoping to get back up to 20. And I'm sure Chief Prosecutor O'Malley would say we can hopefully get up to 23. And it kind of, I apologize, it ties into this recruiting that we're seeing. I don't believe, we're unaccustomed to getting 50 people who are interested in working at our office, and it's going to be, and I want to specifically thank the legislature for giving us the ability to hire law clerks. I don't think you realize the benefit it has for our office, because a lot of law school graduates take the bar exam at the end of the summer and then await for their bar exam results until the fall. So we are potentially missing out on several months of recruiting opportunity for law school graduates and just the stability. So I can tell you that our HR department has already reached out. We have about, of the 50, 30 of them are law school graduates this year. So with the ability to potentially offer them as senior law clerks to come to our office and then await their bar exam results, we're going to have to do a little bit of math. But I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to hire and fill a lot of these positions.
Great. I'm glad to hear increased staffing for that division, especially from 16 to 20, then you're saying hopefully that's
Yes.
FY21 goal. All right. And then I heard you talk, and we're familiar with the victim services. There are some changes, and that's very exciting. And I'm hoping, we can get a more coordinated approach with all the other agencies that have been assigned different parts of the victim services. But I'm just going to put on the record, we continue to get complaints about overall, just pretty much coordination of victim services. So not anything in particular about your office, but, that transfer, and we've talked about this, from when they first come in through the police department, they have specialized services, yet when they move over to the AG's department, AG's, then, it changes. Who they deal with changes, and it makes them very uncomfortable. And I know that we've talked about this, and I know that there's a task force even trying to deal with these things. So I just appreciate your work on that, and I look forward to more. And I know that you've used a lot of federal funds to increase your capability to notify the victims, and congratulations, that's an excellent program. Is that working smoothly right now, or was it put on, was there a glitch in it right before the pandemic or during this pandemic?
It's taken some adjustment to get to remote work. So our Vine system is run off of notification, and we have put in a request for an additional advocate. Right now we have only 9 advocates that are providing services. So if adding one more, potentially that's part of the personnel increase.
How many advocates additional are you requesting?
We requested just one more at this point.
Okay.
Again, we understand that the budget is going to be tight.
Are you saying in this budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Senator.
And all right, that's pretty much my questions for now, except one more. I wanted to thank you for your work and congratulate you on your work on that gaming lawsuit. But I wanted to know, what is the status after that? Is there a status?
The court has issued several orders, and so I believe I will verify, Senator, and I'll get back to you, but I know that that's impacted the deadlines and potential deadlines that may have been may need to be met.
All right, because that was relating to licenses by DRT, and so do you know whether the licenses continue to be issued, or?
I do not know.
All right.
My
Okay.
understanding is that Revenue Tax has limited its operations to.
All right, if you have any update, if you could
Yes.
just provide that, that would be great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That is
Mr.
one
Chair.
case, Senator, where we are on the opposite side of Revenue Tax. So
Yes.
they are the opposing party, and we always encounter this when I talk to Director Shimizu, because we've been working with her so closely. But on this particular issue, we're not able to contact her directly. We have to go through their legal counsel.
I see.
But I will make sure we get you an update, Senator.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Reese. Senator Lee, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Mrs. Masi, Mr. Chair, and thank you, General Camacho, for joining us. Hafa gentlemen. I had a couple questions in your operational budget submission that you sent to all members of the legislature on Part B, page 4, with regard to legal assistance and advice to government agencies. There's a chart here that indicates the workload output and the changes in levels over fiscal year. And so there hasn't been that much change. There's a slight increase over the different government agencies. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of update the committee about this work in particular. A lot of the times when we hear from constituents or even when we have roundtable hearings and the like, when we're gathering information, some of the feedback that we get is that, oh, you know, we don't have an attorney and staff, we're waiting on the AG for opinions, and I know that there's a lot of work and not enough people to do it, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of give us an update on how that's working and how we might be able to improve it. Are there efficiencies that we're not realizing? What do you think are the challenges there?
Thank you, Senator. We are looking to add 2 more attorneys to our solicitor division in this proposed budget. And again, that was before we saw the level of interest that people would have working at the office. So I can tell you that there are many agencies that have funding to hire attorneys, and we get many requests to dedicate an attorney to work at these agencies. But from a personnel perspective, we just don't have the resources. So we have 2 or 3 attorneys that specialize in procurement, and anytime there's, as you know, a procurement over $500,000, our office is required to be involved from the beginning. So we need more people to be helping with procurement, and to at least that's one function of the solicitor division. And the other side would be the opinion requests, the information and guidance. So that's even though it's one division, those are the 2 specific tasks that they perform. We are looking at adding more attorneys to that. And then if we have the resources to bring on folks so that we can actually assign them to specific divisions, we want to pursue that. So right now, I believe EPA has a dedicated attorney, DPW has a dedicated attorney through our office, and then the land agencies also have a dedicated attorney, but everyone else, it's a centralized bank.
Thank you very much. And I guess to follow up to that, I have oversight over the Guam Department of Labor, and I just wanted to follow up with you. I know that the stage that they were in, we had given them in last year's budget some wiggle room to be able to hire an attorney, and I think that they were engaged in an MOU process with your office. So if I could just follow up with you on that.
Yes. I had a call about that at 8 o'clock this morning, so we should probably have an update very soon.
Okay, because I know that especially with all of the unemployment programs and all the federal programs that they are ramping up, they're really, really going to need a lot of help, even more so. And then there are all the other challenges that they have with regard to workers' compensation and all of the other issues that GDOL deals with. So I just wanted to follow up with you. I also wanted to touch on something that Senator Terlahi brought up about victims advocates. And I thank you for the update on that. I know that there are several different touch points within your budget that kind of deal with that, but I wanted to ask you specifically if you could possibly carve out a little bit more in your budget to really work on outreach, communication, and community engagement, because I think a lot of people out there, God forbid, you know, they become victims of crime, victims of violent crime, the community isn't as aware as we would like them to be. And I think even this committee is not as aware as we'd like to be about what is offered, what the programs are, what is available to victims of crime. And I think that we can certainly work better together to try to get the word out, to really help educate our community that, God forbid, they're put in this situation, they know what programs are available to them. So I just want to ask you if you have anything to add to the conversation about that, but if you could please focus on outreach and more community engagement with regard to victims advocacy.
Touching on what Senator Terlahi brought up, so we moved our Victim Services Center under Consumer.
Right, so that's now on the second floor?
I'm sorry?
Yes, second floor.
Second floor, yes.
Yeah.
They've always been on the same floor, but they did not have a deputy that oversaw their operations.
So that's the Victim Services Center, correct?
Correct, yes,
Second
yes,
floor. And then just for anybody who's watching, if they have questions, is there a phone number or email address where they could call and try to get additional information?
Yes, I'll get that number. I don't want to be rude and look at my phone
Okay.
now, right, if you could check that. But
No problem.
I did want to say that since we've moved them under Consumer, they have actually set up outreaches after we launched Vine. They did, I believe, 3 presentations at the mayor's office. We were set to do more before this pandemic hit. So this is something new. We have not, I guess, focused on that type of outreach where we're going out to the mayor's office. I believe PD was the one that was lined up
Right.
for COVID-19. So just in the last few months, we've ramped up our outreach. We were looking to have a food truck rally for Victim Crime Week in the week of April 20. And
All of
then
that got-
that got
yeah.
canceled. So just as we were about to ramp up a lot of our outreach, this happened. So I think that our team down there has been very good. They're very savvy. Some of them are very young and good at using social media, and we've seen a lot
Great.
how productive that has been. In addition to the victim services, we have the Criminal Injury Compensation Fund that we're working on and that we're putting out there. So there's quite a number of programs, and we're just trying to figure out how we can get that information out. Always
Great.
looking for room for improvement.
Well, yeah, I follow your...
And Senator, sorry, yeah, since I head up that division, I will fully support your recommendation for more funds to come into VSC.
Yes, absolutely.
With that being said, though, in addition to what the AG had talked about, right, and we worked with Senator Terlahi to identify fundings, for example, for a room that's identified that'll record interviews. So right now, the practice is that you would have an interview with an initial police officer, a follow-up with a detective, a further follow-up maybe with CPS, and then our office, and then just before trial again. So to prevent that, we're working on some rooms that will allow recording. We've worked with getting the federal funds, and they've now begun to open up too, and so they've been following up with us, can we do this? So that's one of those programs. The AG did touch about the Vine. We're in the final stages of connecting with Department of Corrections, and the reason why that one's important, because if there's an escape, the people would immediately know that a perpetrator has escaped, that would let the victim know. And actually, since in an open system, anyone who actually happens to be registered on it would know that person escaped. So that's just a couple of the new things that are going on within the last year.
Right. And I follow your Instagram page, I follow you on Instagram, so I'm able to see all the different updates. I think that, the graphics are really cool. It helps to get the information out. But if you're able to do more of that, we can try to amplify that message and really help to get it out. And I understand that the Victim Services Center is 100% federally funded, and I know that but I'm just asking if there's any other room in the budget that we can direct towards this area, or if there's anything else the legislature can do to better help our victims of crime. I think that would be really money well spent. And to do a small C, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Regine. Fred, that was a good move for the Attorney General to make sure it's on the record, so we understand. Good move. Senator Luis Muñoz, do you have any question, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you again, AG Camacho and Deputy AG Nishihira, for being here this morning. You mentioned that you needed 10 more attorneys. Do you already have, I don't know if you answered this question, but do you already have these 10 attorneys in sites?
We have we were proceeding to rate and interview attorneys. We have now are utilizing online recruiting, and that just happened in the last 2 weeks. So the hard part for now is we have interested people, but they have to submit applications.
Oh.
And oftentimes the applications require documents that our folks can't get because their governments are closed.
Okay.
So we're looking at within the next 30 days, having a solid pool and moving on, filling those positions.
So it's just a little stalled now because of the
Yes,
the
we had a lot of
pandemic.
momentum building up, and then,
Okay.
yes, there's a lot of interest.
I understand you're short on prosecutors, and there are some federal crimes such as firearms possession by convicted felons and also maybe illegal drug importation. Do you utilize your prosecutors to prosecute those crimes, or is that supposed to be a function for the U.S. Attorney General's office?
So this is where there would be overlapping jurisdiction on some of these drug crimes, and because Guam is a territory, double jeopardy would prohibit our local government from prosecuting for drug offenses and the federal government from prosecuting for drug offenses.
Okay.
So what we do in cases like that is we look where the appropriate sentence would be reached. So you see most of the larger drug cases are going to be taken by the U.S. Attorney, and we have been working with them and building on that relationship. So the law enforcement side, we have task force that are both federal and local, people that are involved, and then there's a decision on who to refer it to. So even if both of our offices could charge it, only one of us could get the conviction.
Okay, so it's kind of a collaborative
Yes.
effort.
And they, possession with intent to distribute on Guam is a 10-year for ICE versus the federal guidelines, which would be much stiffer penalties. So those are the types of assessments that happen to the amount of drugs, importation, and then, but we do have a working relationship with the U.S. Attorney on that.
Okay. Okay. On a separate note, I understand like the stimulus is the federal guidelines are if you owe child support, they won't get their stimulus or it would be deducted. So do you see a rise in the child support collections now because of that stimulus? Is it like, I'm trying to understand if someone owes, say for example, $1,200, and instead of getting their stimulus, does it go directly into their child support account?
This is, so I've talked to both the revenue tax and to our child support. And my understanding is that the way it's qualified as the income or tax offset or credit, we've been following the procedures from both the tax and the child support matter. So if you were to get a tax refund and you showed on the system that you owe child support arrears, it would be garnished. It's happening the same way with these stimulus checks, even if they're called stimulus checks.
So most of the accounts then are now starting to be at least somewhat realized because of the stimulus?
So the way that, and again, I can call in Deputy Attorney General Perez if needed, but my understanding is that if you owe child support arrears and your stimulus check is garnished, then there's a secondary review. For example, if it's an injured spouse, they need to make sure if you're married and you receive a single $1,200 or $2,400 check, there needs to be a determination made at revenue tax, any defenses that could be made, and then after that period, I think, I want to say it's 60 days, then those funds would be distributed to the parent, the obligee.
So you probably haven't seen any of those funds yet?
Even if it's being garnished at this point, it won't be cut to the obligee until after those administrative processes have run.
Okay, okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Just for information, the stimulus, it's in the law. If you got child support, married, it all goes to child support. It's in the law. When it deals with tax refund, there's a section in the law in IRS that talks about the spouse being it's like the victimless spouse. There's a percentage that it's cut, and so much goes to you guys for child support. The remaining stays with the spouse that had nothing to do with the child support. Okay, just to let you know that. And that's something IRS and revenue tax will work with you guys. You get the total amount. All you know is that the person that due in arrears has to make sure you get the money so you can pass the money on.
Yes.
All
I
right.
guess, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out that there's nothing new from
Right.
this. I mean, they call it a stimulus check, but from the tax side and from the child support side, they're treating it as though it's something that, they're following the procedures that have been put in place.
Yes.
So nothing has changed
That's correct.
with this money coming in.
Senator Kelly, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Suzuki Masi, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out that it's been a very productive discussion. We've covered quite a bit of material relating to both the budget and the services of the Attorney General's office. And through that very productive discussion, a lot of the questions that I have been answered. But it has been important to hear about the upgrades, the increased efficiency and efficacy, and the potential for this additional staff to increase the productivity and the ability to continue serving the community. So thank you both and everybody else at the office for your hard work, and we look forward to more of that. Sujuis Maasi, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Senator Jim Moylan, do you have any questions, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Attorney General, for your budget presentation. I understand that you're able to perform for the FY budget that you had, which was under budget, so I appreciate that. And of course, you're coming before us as a committee for the FY21 budget to ask for the increase in order to meet the obligations that your team is working so hard to achieve. So thank you for that. You stated in your budget that this is all before COVID-19, and you're asking for an 18% increase. You're also mentioning that the technology would greatly help the department in efficiency, and how you're able to adjust with the COVID-19 and how you can work with the staff and your people that you assist in our community. Truthfully, I think what our committee is looking at is that not necessarily how we can increase FY21 budget, but how we can even possibly keep FY20 budget because of our budget crisis. And that's a struggle that we're going to have to do as the senators and to come up with something reasonable to work with. So not to take away any importance of what the Attorney General's office must do, and it's very critical. The needs of the AG's office must be met as best as possible. But in my eyes, there will be cuts. And the priorities, are, of course, I hope you can further talk with our chairman here to discuss those must priorities. And I think the most important one is, hopefully if all goes well and our economy gets back into place and we got our hotels down in Tumon working, then of course the manpower as you requested is necessary. But in the meantime, I'm hoping we can have further discussions about the workforce, not to increase, but what must stay. And that's what I hope later on that we can come to that conclusion. But I appreciate, and I just, I get it. We need to ask for additional money. That's important, and that's the fight for every department that comes before this committee. But in reality, what I'm looking at is, it's not going to happen. And if you can truthfully help us to not hurt the department as much as possible, not just your department, but of course others, I think that will be safer for us to work with. And then, of course, if budget goes well, we can also come back with a supplement and give you what you truly deserve to make that a solid department. So thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Senator Pito Terlai, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Livin, thank you very much for joining us this morning, this morning. I just want to I'm straight to the point because I'm hearing that probably you're going to have some lapses from the previous budget. So if you do, are you going to be requesting for a carryover? Because, I'm hearing that you haven't really recruited additional employees, such as attorneys. So I figured maybe you're going to have some lapses on the previous budget. So if you do, would you be requesting for a carryover?
Yes, Senator, we would welcome a carryover.
So most definitely, you will have a lapse on your previous budget.
It is looking like that, Senator.
Okay. Another thing that I wanted, because we had discussion, some issues on the procurement. Are you in any way, or do you coordinate with the governor's office regarding the rules of procurement for local and federal money that are coming in? Or it's on, are you coordinating with them? Do they ask you for legal opinion on some of the things regarding procurement, both local and federal?
I can say, so we have, as an example, we are a recipient of some grants out of the governor's office that the governor's office runs. So we will have to work with them sometimes on procurement for anything related to those grants. Generally, we do handle procurement for agencies, and before this, we had started potentially putting together. So most agencies, we are involved by law, anything $500,000 or above $500,000. But most agencies actually have their own procurement officer that handles the procurement up until the point that it gets referred to our office if the governor needs to sign. So there's a lot of procurement that our office is not involved in, but we were wanting to do a training because some of the delay that we have as our, I'll give you an example, Senator. We will go through and we will draft and we will assist in a contract for an agency. We will sign it, everything will be good. The next year, they will submit a draft contract or a contract that they've disregarded all of the changes that we've made from the prior year. So this is the struggle that we have, where our office gets very frustrated because they work with people, they get into a contract, that it meets all legal requirements, and then all that work goes to waste the next year. So we need to work with our agencies goes back to formalizing, standardizing, and being consistent with the contracts that we get. So we're hoping to have some training like that. COVID-19 has interrupted our plans, but I believe Fred and Deputy Attorney General Carl Espadon, were working on putting together procurement training for Government of Guam agencies.
Thank you, Livin. I just before I end my inquiry, I just want to thank you and your employees for doing a good job. Thank you very much. We're hearing a lot of good things coming from the public regarding, your prompt services. Whenever they ask you for your legal opinion, you come out right away. So I just want to thank you and your employees for doing such a magnificent job. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pidu. Senator Tello, ma'am, Minority Leader.
So just Mossy, Mr. Chair. I hope you guys can hear me okay. It's kind of hard to hear you guys over there, so I appreciate if you could just get a little bit closer to the microphone. I promise it's not going to bite you. So I might have to ask you a couple other questions that might have been asked prior, because I couldn't really hear you. But our good oversight chair is pretty much thorough in asking a lot of questions, as well as my colleagues bringing up some that I already had. And I greatly appreciate what your office is doing with, it's always been a struggle at the Attorney General's office to have attorneys there, and retain them in your office. And I realize that, but one of the questions was asked prior to that. Before you came on board, Mr. Camacho, Attorney General Camacho, how many attorneys were employed with the Attorney General's office before you came on board? And then how many do you have again? I'm sorry to ask that question again, but I couldn't hear you when you were answering the question.
So we currently have about...
Prior to you coming on board, when it was under Attorney General Elizabeth Barrett Anderson, how many attorneys were there?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I can find out and pull up a staffing pattern.
Was it more or less?
It was going to be more. But
There was more under her administration than it was under yours,
Yes.
what currently you have under yours.
Yes.
However, you're requesting for additional attorneys.
Yes.
And would that be the same amount of attorneys that she had under her administration, or would it be more?
I believe the request is always, we tend to hover around 50 attorneys, and optimally 60 is the target. So I believe that's consistent for most of the budget submissions that have been filed. So although the numbers may be off plus or minus 5. I think we've always, as an office, requested up around 60 attorneys, but I can verify that. Senator.
Okay, I would appreciate that, and the if you can give our oversight chair, I'm sure she'll disseminate that information to us as well. The other one, we were on child support, and that was discussed briefly on child support. What is the balance in the child support fund right now, and how much of that has been sitting dormant for more than 10 years?
I can get you the specific breakdowns as well, Senator. I believe the balance is still going to be around $5 million. We've distributed about $200,000 in the last year, and I can get the exact numbers, but it's several hundred checks that UDC has issued.
And are you working on any possibilities of, like most bank accounts, when it's dormant for a certain amount of time, then it's, I forget the correct terminology. Fred, what's that terminology when banks are dormant for a while? Escheated, there it is.
Yes,
Thank you so much. That you would utilize these fundings in that at least looking toward funding for your agency to oversee the most needed software and all the things that you need electronically to ensure a process that's quick and reliable. I know that last year you came to my office asking for some funding for that. But if you could even look into that area too. We did discuss it at one time. I remember a public hearing, but nothing came about. I didn't hear from anybody. I believe Stephanie Mendiola was in that public hearing, but again, nothing came. And that is funding that's just been sitting there. So if you can look into that, that would help your office.
I can tell you, Senator, that the complication with the treatment and child support is that the federal match that we receive, so for every dollar, every 34 cents, the federal government will give us 64 cents. If we escheat any funds, they would reduce their match by that amount. So if there was a $2 million escheatment, the federal government would reduce its match by that exact amount. So unless we had an appropriation, or unless the escheatment was put directly back into child support, the child support division would be short operationally that equal amount.
And that's what I mean. It would go nowhere but to go into the child support division for assistance that you need.
And just to give you an update, and we are preparing an update for you, but what the UDC team has done, they've broken it down into categories. So we've gone through the first category, which are checks that were returned to the government of Guam. The next would be to verify if checks were uncashed. Mm-hmm. And then there's a large sum of money where we just don't know where it came from. And 2 years ago, our child support team put out an RFP for assistance from a financial institution to go out and to help us audit these amounts. Because, at the end of the day, if these are payments that were made to support a family, we want to make sure it gets to us rightful owners before we go down the road of escheatment.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost. Fred, you've been at the Attorney General's office for quite some time. So I just wanted to ask you this question. The years that you've been at the Attorney General's office, it's been a lot of information that you know, that you're privy to. Of all the areas in the departments, the programs and everything that's handled at the Attorney General's office, what area is most needed of funding?
Funding as opposed to the resource. Right now, we've had 4 senior attorneys retire or resign in the litigation area. I know we've traditionally had a shortage in prosecution. We have a brand new deputy, Honorable Jamie Canto, that heads that division up, so he alone, just because of his experience, is holding down. But if you ask me if we could put resources into the agency, that probably is the division that needs the most help, legal resource-wise. I mean, prosecution as well needs a lot of help, but you have 4 senior attorneys that used to cover all the civil litigation throughout the government of Guam. That's a really big hole to fill.
Okay, thank you, Fred, for that. Thank you, appreciate that. You talked about, actually, I just wanted to commend you on your website. A lot of information is coming. There's some that still needs to be updated on your website. And there is an area when earlier it was talked about FOIA requests and that how you're assisting with other agencies with FOIA. But unfortunately on your website, it's only a section for FOIA regarding COVID-19. But there are other subject matters other than COVID-19 that are FOIA'd. Why is that not on your website and only COVID-19 FOIAs?
That was part of an executive order to post COVID-19 FOIAs on our website for agencies, and we are looking at, I guess the difficulty for us, Senator, would be, although we assist agencies with FOIA requests when we are asked, not all agencies ask for our assistance. So unless there's something that requires all agencies to submit FOIAs, we do an audit of number of requests, how long it took to respond, but the documents themselves, we don't see. So I'm hoping that with, we're a very big believer in G Suites, and I'm glad that we actually moved over to it, thanks to our general counsel, the week before COVID-19 broke on Guam. But now we have, as an example, we have unlimited cloud storage. So if we are able to leverage that and to get agencies to upload into a database, we're all about transparency. So if we can upload a PDF file and have it searchable and give that as a resource for the community, we're all for it. But it's just going to take us some time to establish the procedures to make sure that we're going to have complete records.
Yeah, I don't mean to put something additionally on your plate, with that, but I think it's serving a great purpose, and most especially compared to what your mission statement is, and that is transparency. And I think it would be great on top of all the other, things mandated to you to oversee, such as, Guam Consumer Protection Task Force of Prevention and Trafficking. You have Guam notary law. I realize you are strapped, but and I do realize the lack of attorneys to provide opinions, like my colleague before me was talking about opinions. And Levin, I heard your comments made on an interview that you did on double pay, that you had to make sure that you got this opinion to the good chairman of OFB. Or you would have to pay $100, every day from doing that. Well, I sent a letter to you on, I believe it was April 28th, asking for an opinion on something, and I received something on May 18th still from Stephanie saying, we'll let you know this week, and it's already this week, but technically it's been 17 days. And by law, there is a law, a current law, that says you have 7 days to provide that opinion, legal opinion. And the request I made was done 17 business days ago, and I still have not received opinion. So that means, Levin, you're going to owe this government, well, it's actually 17 business days, but 10 days fine. You're actually going to owe this government $1,000 because it's already been 10 days past based on the law. So
I think the statute requires us to serve you a copy of the opinions that we issue.
actually, to the legislative secretary,
Yes.
It requires, not necessarily to me, but by the law, it says the legislative secretary. And
After
it's
an
still-
opinion has been issued, Senator. So once we issue an opinion, we're required to serve it on the legislative secretary.
Right,
within-
exactly. And
but
it still
it's-
hasn't been done. It's been 17 days, Levin. So I'm wondering why I haven't got it. And just for the listening audience, this opinion requested, what is your opinion that the governor has the authority by law to utilize or to spend the FY19 excess revenue that came from FY19? This is a big question that's being asked. And this is very important, especially budget time, and as we're going through the budget, that we're talking about what monies that we can use. This opinion is going to be very helpful to us, because when the good OFB chair looks at funding and areas that we can pull from and how we're going to appropriate, because that's our responsibility as a legislature to appropriate funds, we need to know what funding we have to appropriate. So this opinion is very, very important. We have an opinion from the governor's office that says that she's citing a particular law, and then we have an opinion from our legal counsel here at the legislature that's opposite of their opinion. So we are really looking forward to hearing that opinion, considering we're in budget and this crisis is coming up. Where are we going to find the money? And our job is to appropriate. So Levin, the law is clear. Right now, you're basically you're $1,000 in the hole right now, and that's coming out of your personal pocket, because by law, you can't use government funds. It has to be your personal funds. So I appreciate that. Since somebody brought up opinion, I'm bringing it up. Do you know when I'm going to get that opinion, by the way, Levin?
We're working on it, Senator.
And by the way, the funds go directly into I think it's the ethics fund account. So you'll be making a deposit, I hopefully soon. Other than that, you know, I've been probably one of the greatest fans, even last year during the budget for the Attorney General's office. Met with your office, talked with them on pushing, you know, additional funding that you need, the importance, especially the software that's going to help move that through. And I just wish that there were other areas that you would comply with that would help us do our job too. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Senator Meritorious, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. General Levin Camacho, I noticed, I'm glad that you talked about the recruitment of attorneys and that's been very successful, because that was one thing that was noticeable in all your discussions about the need for additional attorneys in the various divisions. And I'm glad also, Attorney Nishihara, that you mentioned that the litigation division is probably the most in need. That area and the challenges that you described in your submission to the committee, to me was very profound. Specifically, the fact that you have only 3 out of the 7 attorneys on the staffing pattern for that in play, but mostly that you don't have a case management system presently. Can you discuss a little bit the critical need for a case management system, how that has adversely impacted your division of any litigation, and what the likelihood of procuring one and standing one up in this fiscal year is likely?
I would say we're having not only a technology shift, but a bit of a generational shift at the office. The majority of our staff I'm one of the younger ones in the office, I can say. So I can tell you, Senator, that with G Suites, I was worried that there was going to be some reluctance to get on to changing our email completely from Outlook, but our office has been extremely receptive to it. So that has made me hopeful that if we move, or when we move to a case management system, it's going to take some time, but it will be well received. The potential holdup for that would be with our divisions. Everyone does their systems differently. So you know, our prosecution division is on Justware, which we found out is potentially going to be or will be phased out by the end of next year, within fiscal year 21. So we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with that. We have FileMaker Pro, which is it's kind of a database system that our solicitor litigation division, our family division, our consumer division use. Consumer division for collections has had to get another software specific to debt collection. What we're going to try to do, Senator, is do a big picture approach. So if we're able to find a case management system that can be utilized, or a solution that can be utilized across all divisions, and you know, now that we've been having more discussions with our IT department, there may be the potential for us to use our current kind of databases, but then to have it cloud-based in the storage, so that if we're looking for particular cases or data, we can leverage the Google kind of search capabilities with it. So
there is a possibility to find a software that can interface with everything?
that's what we're hoping for, to use, now that we're on Google, to use Google Calendar, Google Meet, and all of that, along with the case management system.
Yeah, it's incredible, you being the largest law firm on Guam, that there is that major gap, particularly in litigation, which we know is so precarious when it comes to timelines and meeting certain requirements. So I hope that, you know, that effort continues, and that I know that staff is very talented in manually going through a tickler system and that sort of thing. But, you know, as we know, sometimes technology can be that artificial intelligence that will help prevent loopholes from occurring, or us from falling into those traps. But do you have so you have an ongoing effort, but is there a committed budget to getting closer to realizing fulfillment of a gap in a management system?
We were going to, and the other issue with procurement, Senator, is subscription-based services. A lot of the new case management system is cloud-based or subscription-based, and not all vendors accept purchase orders, or that process can take a while. So that's the other challenge that we're going to have. Even if we have a $10,000 system that would be a small purchase, we have to find a vendor that accepts a government purchase order, and there's just some logistical things. We're having some very serious discussions before COVID-19 happened, and again, we're going to have a broader discussion about what might work for across the entire office, so we have a single platform for everybody, and that way we don't have to, we will have uniformity and uniform standards. Naming, as an example, Senator, we have networks, but we don't have any protocol for how to do structures with our directory structures or naming standards. So those are the kind of things we're going to have to get stood up as well.
Well, the best of luck to you. And
Thank you.
I hope that, if anything, that your recruitment does help you fill the needed staffing levels in that litigation division.
Thank you. And on that, Senator, I will say that we have had interest to hire retired attorneys, but we recognized the legislature wanted it to be limited to when we have critical need. So we still have an interest in potentially bringing on retired attorneys to fill some of these positions, but with the interest that we've seen, our preference would always be to hire full-time classified attorneys to staff it out. But we're prepared to go that route if we need to.
But thank you, though, for your submission, because it does paint a clearer picture for those of us that aren't intimately familiar with how the AG's office operates. So I appreciate your detail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mary Torres. You have one follow-up? Okay, you get one follow-up.
Thank you. Just
Senator
real
Tello.
quick, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Camacho, or Attorney General Camacho, why did you attend the procurement oversight hearing last night?
I'm sorry. Why wasn't I there?
Yeah, why were you were
I was,
requested by the oversight chair to attend? How come you didn't attend the oversight?
There was a discussion about... Yes.
General Camacho, Senator Tello, we're talking budget, not just last night. Please stick with the budget. Unless it relates to the budget, then I can understand that. Okay, Senator Tello?
I'm available after the hearing, Senator.
Sure, thank you.
Okay? Thank you. General Camacho, a simple question to ask you, and if you can just look at your packet, I guess your budget. Total unclassified employees in 2019, what is the number you have? Because I know that your budget should give you the breakdown for 2019, 2020, and 2021. I'm just going to go down the line so that we're in agreement with what I've got and what you submitted. If you look at your packet, you'll probably find in 2019, you had 14 unclassified employees. 2020, you asked for 17 unclassified. You see that, Fred?
Yes.
Okay. And then in 2021, you asked for total 19, an increase of 2. Am I correct? Are we consistent so far?
I'm showing 19 on mine.
19 for 2021, right?
19 or 18?
I see 18.
18.
Correction?
No, ours is showing 18. Let me double check that. That would be tab C, page 1, right?
Okay, if you could just move the mic a little bit closer so that everybody can make sure.
I apologize.
problem.
I am looking at our submission, tab C, page 1, and at the very bottom one, it shows the numbers you just said, 14, 17, and 18.
14, 17, and 18. So it's 18 for 2021. Okay.
Correct.
I'll correct my sheet. Now let's go to the classified. For 2019, 2020, and 21, can you give me the numbers?
I see 166 in 19, 164 in 20, and 172 in 21.
172?
2?
172? Okay. If you go to your total general fund, you got 13 million in 2019, you got 15 in 2020. What is your request for 2021?
17.6?
17.6, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and on the federal funds, you requested from the federal government, there's federal funds, 3.5 in 2020, you had what, 4 million?
Yes,
And then you increase in 2021 to hopefully 4.5, correct?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Senator Therese, oversight, do you have any follow-up questions before we wrap up this
Yes,
budgetary?
please, thank you. All right, could you just reiterate, these 10 new attorneys that we talked about, is that based on FY 2020 budget? I mean, are you currently recruiting them? They're coming in this year, or?
That was in the, our proposed staffing patterns. There would be 10 additional attorneys added.
So that's only if you get this budget, then you can recruit these 10 additional attorneys in FY '21?
Our current budget, sorry. I have the number for you, Senator. Give me one moment, please.
Senator, could you repeat that question so I can make sure I understood it?
Oh, okay, we talked about, with the FY '21 budget, are you going to increase personnel? And we were told there would be 10 new attorneys and some other personnel. So on the 10 new attorneys, I was just clarifying if they're only going to be recruited in FY '21, or are they already recruited for FY '20?
For fiscal year 20, Senator, we are actively recruiting we're looking to fill 2 positions in solicitor, 7 attorneys in prosecution, 3 attorneys in litigation.
3 in where? What's the
In
last?
litigation, civil
Litigation.
litigation, yes.
Okay, and so, did you say you did recruit or you are recruiting for FY '20?
We are recruiting for FY 20.
Okay, and so then, so the increase in personnel for FY '21, is that for 10 on top of that?
I guess echoing what Senator Moylan has brought up, the challenges. So we have potentially eliminated other positions in our budget to put a priority on hiring attorneys. When the 3 senior attorneys that retired this year were at the higher end of the pay scale. So those 3 attorneys could potentially fill 5 brand new attorneys, or if we were to go attorney 1, attorney 2, attorney 3, attorney 4. So we're having to just, we look at the amount we have available for this fiscal year, and we're trying to figure out where we can fill. So for the 10 attorneys that was for fiscal year 21 in our proposed budget, of the personnel that we've requested for next year, that would contemplate having 10 additional attorneys at specific positions within those divisions. If that makes sense, Senator, I'm sorry.
Okay. For example, the prosecution division. You said that according to the chief prosecutor, Basil Mallon, the goal would be 23, or that would be ideal for him, or he thinks we need 23. But you said we're going to recruit 4 to go from 16 to 20, and that is in FY '21?
The proposed staffing pattern for next year contemplates hiring 4 additional attorneys. For this year, it's a moving target, but I think we've actually budgeted to hire 7 to
Okay.
get back to 23.
That would bring you up to 16.
That's correct.
Okay.
But that would contemplate 4 brand new attorneys. So that's where we get into, would it make more sense to hire a more senior prosecutor, and then it would just eat into the number of attorneys that are available. For next year's fiscal year 21, I believe the 4 attorney positions that we've budgeted for are 2 attorney 2s, attorney 3s, and potentially an attorney 4.
So in FY '20, the breakdown was 7 for the prosecution, 3 for litigation, 2 for solicitors. And in FY '21, where are these new 10 attorneys going to go? You said 4 to prosecution, 2 to solicitors.
I think we filled 2 or 3 in litigation.
Okay.
Let me pull it up again.
So that would increase your litigation number of lawyers compared to FY '20?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sure you thought about it, but if you could just explain, filling the additional solicitor's positions versus adding more to the prosecution division. Is that because of a difficulty to recruit, or just decision that that's where you needed it more?
I'm sorry, Senator, could you repeat the question?
You're adding 4 attorneys to the prosecution division in FY21, and you're adding 2 to the solicitors. And I guess I'm just asking, we're not yet up to the 23 ideal in the prosecution division. So is recruiting 2 more to solicitors instead of prosecution because you need them also into solicitors, or because it's difficult to recruit additional prosecutors to get us up to 23?
That would be filling 1 vacancy that we've had in Solicitor Division this year, so we're down 1 attorney. And then, as we've mentioned earlier, there are agencies that have the ability and want or requesting to have a dedicated attorney through our office, so that's part of what the additional body and solicitor would potentially give us.
And so that would be new? Which new,
Yes.
I guess, so you're going to have to hire solicitors to take care of agencies
Correct.
that you don't currently assign 1 lawyer to? So which agencies would that be?
I think Department of Labor is the one in particular that has identified federal funds.
That's paid out of federal funds?
Yes.
Oh, so that shouldn't be included in our budget then?
The challenge is, the Senator, and I'm learning this, is that even if it's going to be paid out through an MOU, we have to budget for it in the event we don't get the money.
All
Because
right.
sometimes, I think one agency, as an example, we didn't get the federal funds until the 3rd quarter of the fiscal year. So we have to budget as though we have to pay them out of our own funds at the
All
start
right.
of the year.
How many attorneys or what part of your budget is assigned for collections?
That's all under Consumer Division.
Okay, consumer.
And right now, it is our Consumer Division, I guess just to, not only now are they handling victim services, they do restitution, they handle our consumer complaints, they are handling some of our consumer-related litigation, they do collections, and Fred has 3 attorneys there, maybe 4 now total. So, obviously we would like to, based on the increase in work over there, we would like to try to add someone.
All right.
Victims' compensation. Yeah.
What about, okay, now, just the attorneys assigned for the agencies for the government of Guam, these are all in the solicitors division?
That's correct.
And are there specific attorneys assigned for procurement review?
The attorneys who handle most of our procurement would be Attorney Laura Mooney and Attorney Jessica Toft, and I believe Attorney Matt Wolf also assists in.
Who's that last one?
Matt Wolf.
Matt Wolf. So Laura Mooney, Jessica Toff, and Matt Wolf.
Yes.
And
Sometimes Attorney Miller, Sandra Miller, will also assist, so it's very fluid. We have a very experienced group of solicitors, so that they'll
yes,
kind of
yeah,
move as needed.
These attorneys seem to be the experienced ones. What are the, we've heard from some agencies, well, a lot of times when we follow up with these, they call us because their procurements are not done, and when we've tried to find out what's the issue, sometimes they will tell us that it's at the Attorney General's office. And some of them say, oh, our contracts have been there for months. Do you think that's a correct assessment of how long it takes to review the contracts?
We've been tracking that actually, Senator, and I can produce the stats, but when the last time we did it, was actually pretty quick turnaround at our office. And I know that that's often the common refrain, it's at the AG's office, so we don't include in time as an example if there are certain things that need to be corrected and we send it back to them. There have been times where they've complained to our office and we've sat down and they didn't realize that we had actually returned the contract and they hadn't made the changes and resubmitted it. So we're hoping to work out some of those kinks, but our solicitor division is actually much quicker than they're given credit for. In
How many
turnaround.
months? Is it 6 months it takes?
No, it was actually less than 30 days, Senator, for
Less
the
than
majority.
30 days to get like a primary review and some recommendations?
It's going to depend on the complexity. Like we have one contract, 5150, that's the entire process has taken over a year just because of the
Yes.
process. But in terms of the review on our side, agencies that work with us on the front end, they have things that go quickly. I can tell you that I can't count the number of contracts or MOUs or MOAs I have to sign the last week of September. Everything is expedited at
Yeah.
that point in order to meet funding. So our solicitor division is on it. Usually if it's, as I mentioned the example before, where we get a contract and they haven't incorporated any of the changes that we've made in the years past. So we hope to work with our agencies to straighten some of that out.
So So you're saying if agencies are waiting over 30 days, it's either very complex or there's something wrong? I mean, something serious, but they know why there is a delay at that point?
For the most part, our office, once we get a contract, I've seen, I've been not surprised, but we tend to move things pretty quickly once it gets to our office, if it's correct. Now, again, if there's legal issues that have come up, it's going to take a little bit more time, but I'd say that's the minority of a lot of the documents that we get.
All right, and did the Attorney General's office recently add on legal services for the port?
We have an MOU, I believe, that we're doing just a temporary until they're able to procure legal counsel. I think the same has happened with GSWA. Their legal counsel, they don't have legal counsel, so we've done that in the past. For example, with the receivership ending, I think we've offered some assistance just until they're able to retain legal counsel.
So what is the current status of GSWA?
I believe they've asked our office to assist temporarily with some services.
Temporarily?
Yes.
Not permanently?
Correct.
Permanently?
No, I think it's temporary, that's my understanding.
Okay, so for both the port and solid waste, the temporary is what you're...
I think at this point, our office is just kind of seeing what their long-term plan is going to be, but that's just more of a request for us to help in the interim. That I'm aware of, Senator.
Is there one attorney in your office assigned to civil service matters?
I don't think we have anyone assigned, but Attorney Donna Lawrence handles a lot of our civil service cases.
And do you always represent the line agencies in civil service matters?
I think it depends. I'll have to verify. I know for terminations that our office does, but for other matters, we tend not to. We allow the agencies to handle it.
All right.
Yeah, sorry.
Are there any other agencies that you've added on services that are not like your regular line agencies that you do permanently?
Not that I'm aware of, Senator.
Just so you know, we started helping, or in the process of helping DCA collect on collections with the Chamorro Village. So that's a new agency we had not dealt with before. We're just in the beginning stage.
But limited to collections, we're not.
Correct.
For collection
Correct.
purposes. Okay. Under DCA, Department of Chamorro Affairs.
Right.
I know that in the, all right. So would you say then that, for example, the port is supposed to hire its own counsel? Or they're authorized to and they don't have to?
I don't think it's clear for the port. I think the port is one of those agencies where the law is a little bit unclear.
The law is what?
A little bit unclear.
Unclear?
Yes.
Okay. And solid waste, are they, I remember, they're a new agency, so I kind of remember them. And they were given this special authority to hire positions by themselves. Yeah. Attorney was one. I wasn't sure they needed it, but yeah, but that was one. So how long has this been going on?
That I just remember, what I can tell you I remember for GSWA was when Chief Judge Gatewood ordered that operations would return back to GSWA, but there were certain things, there was I believe a bond that had to be worked through. We had one of our attorneys or a few of our attorneys were assisting GSWA in that process because they didn't have legal counsel at that point. But that's all I can recall, Senator.
All right, yeah, because I think it's been a while now since that was set up. Supposed to be, independent. Okay, all right, well, I appreciate your answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Therese. General Levin and Fred, do you have anything you wanted to say as we're going to close this budget hearing?
Nothing, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Fred?
I would just also like to really thank our finance people, Rebecca Perez, who oversees the admin division. It's a lot of hard work that went into here, and quite honestly, I have the fun part of presenting before you guys, so thank you.
Thank you, General Camacho and Fred. The committee will conclude this budget hearing The committee will continue to receive testimonies. And please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. and Augustine at gmail.com. Jesus Marcy for attendance and participation in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. This budget hearing on Bill 282-35 LS relative to the office of the Attorney General is now adjourned at 12:01. Thank you, and Jesus Marcy. The committee will continue with DOE at 1:30. Thank you.